going to share a wonderful testimony that I know will touch everybody. Well, I am so humbled to be here, and when I met with the board, and they've asked me to be here, I'm just overwhelmed with emotion. And I would just like to begin with a prayer, if I could, please. Oh, precious Father, I thank you for bringing me here to this place, all of us here. And Father, may they hear your words and not mine. And Father, I pray that every person leaves here today knowing truly just how needed this pregnancy care center is. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Well, when I was 15 years old, I found myself pregnant and did not know how I had come to that place in my life. I was always a good girl, went to church my whole life, but there was a part of me inside that I felt unworthy, unloved, unwanted, and so I needed that validation to be filled, and I feel that through boys. And so, October of 1995, I found myself pregnant. And I was scared, and I felt alone, and I didn't know who I could turn to. And my boyfriend, when he was 17, and he wanted this baby, and he was so excited. And he too came from a broken home, and so he thought in his mind that this was going to be a way of him to have a family. And so he confided in his neighbors. She was an RN, and her husband was a police officer. And she told me I needed to go to the health department to find out, make sure I was really pregnant. And so we went, and they confirmed that I was. And no one asked me how I was. No one asked this 15-year-old girl, "Are you okay? Are you scared?" All they asked was, "Are you ready to have a baby?" And I said, "Well, I guess I have to be. I'm pregnant." I didn't know of any other choice. And I was terrified. And my boyfriend's neighbor, she was talking about adoption. And her husband had been trying to have a baby and was unsuccessful. And she was making plans with this child I was carrying, and all the while I have not told my mom yet. And so she goes with me to tell my mom, and I couldn't do it. I sat there looking at my mom in the face, and I could not say the word, "I'm pregnant." So she blurted out, "Tammy's pregnant." And the look on my mom's face, I will never forget. One of disappointment and of shame and sadness. And my mom and I had been so close. It was just my mom, my brother, and I. And we did everything together. And then at that moment, I could tell that it was changing. Our relationship would be changed forever. And so, after they left, it was just my mom and I. And she says, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I guess I'm going to have a baby." And so I began crying. And I was 15, sitting in my mom's lap while she's holding me, because I was so scared. And she said, "Everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through this." And she said, "Have you ever heard of abortion?" And I said, "Well, I've heard of it, but I did not know what it was. I had no idea what to expect." And she said, "It'll make everything go away. You'll be able to live your life, finish school, as if nothing ever happened, and nobody will know." And there was a part of me inside, even though I didn't know what it was, that felt that it was wrong. But when she mentioned it would be like everything would go away, as if nothing ever happened, I could see the relief on her face saying those words. And she had mentioned, do you know what girls like you are called? What people are going to call you? What people are going to say about you? And you know that we can't afford a baby. You know that I can't take care of another child. And she said, do you know what your mama's going to say? And I knew that everybody always thought I was a good girl. And at that moment, everything would change. And they would know that I'm not the good girl that they've always said that I was. They put me on this pedestal, and now I have fallen off of it. And so I agreed to have the abortion. And my boyfriend did not want me to, and he cried and would beg for me to not go through this. And weeks went on, and I just thought that my mom was going to take care of everything. And it was in November, almost around Thanksgiving, and she asked if I had called and made the appointment. And I said no. And she said, well, you're going to have to call and make an appointment to have the abortion. And I said, well, I don't even know where to call. I don't know where to go. And so she told me to look it up in the phone book. And so I looked it up, and there are abortion clinics listed, which was, I never even thought that there would be a listing for abortion clinics, but there was. And so there was only 2, and I had no idea who to choose, but I chose one. And I couldn't call. It took me a week to call. And around that time, my sister was also pregnant. And she was married, already had a child, and she was around 5 months pregnant. And so they come in to visit, and everyone is talking about this baby and how excited they are for her and for this child, and all the while I'm pregnant and no one knows. And I was so sad that I felt like my mom didn't care about this child that was inside of me. But she cared about this child. And so I felt like I knew that it was wrong, what I was doing. I knew that it was wrong, and I did it anyway. And so I already felt ashamed for that reason. So I called, and the first time the lady at the abortion clinic answered, I hung up because I didn't know what to say. And so the second time I called back, and I said, I'm 15 and I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do. And my mom is making me call. And she said, well, first off, you have to be 16 in order to come to the clinic on your own and to receive the abortion. And I said, oh, she's bringing me, but she won't call and schedule this. She's making me do it. And so she was asking me all these questions that I had no idea what she was asking me, and didn't understand some of the questions. And she asked me how far along I was, and I didn't know. And so they scheduled the date for a Saturday, December the 2nd, 1995. And all this time I'm going to school, pretending I'm okay, trying to keep up with my schoolwork, trying to be a regular student. And all the while I'm carrying this secret. And the night before the abortion, I laid in bed crying all night. I didn't want to go. And truthfully, not just because of the baby, I was scared. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if it was going to hurt. I didn't know what to think. I had never, the whole medical field, I wasn't used to that. I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been to a doctor, except for just minor things. And so we leave early in the morning, aunts and my uncles lived all around us, so they didn't know where we were going. It was all secretive. And we drive to the abortion clinic, and when you first walk in, they do a consultation with you. And my mom made my boyfriend pay. He was with us. And so he reluctantly, handed over the money to them. And the secretary asked my mom, told her about the different types of anesthesia that they give. And she said, "You want her to be put to sleep, or they would give like a Valium to those who wasn't put to sleep." And my mom looked at me and said, "No, I want her to remember what she's done." She did not understand or know the full weight of her words. She had no idea. In her mind, she truly thought that it would just go away and we would live the rest of our life happily ever after and not ever think about it ever again. And so, before the abortion, they require you to have an ultrasound. And they allowed my boyfriend to go in there with me. And my mom was not allowed. And so, for the first time, I saw this baby on the screen. And the ultrasound tech told me that I was around 9.5 weeks. And I saw the heartbeat, and at that point, I looked away. And that was the moment that I kind of shut down, or I couldn't make it. And my boyfriend was crying and begging me to just leave. And I couldn't. I kept thinking about my mom and what she said. And I hated how my mom couldn't talk to me anymore. She couldn't look at me anymore without crying or feeling this shame when she looked at me. And so I went through with it. And I'll spare you all the details except that I remember every detail of that day. The way the room looked, the doctor, the nurse, all of it. And so, when we left the clinic, my mom looked over her shoulder and said, "This is over with. This never happened, and we will never talk about it ever again." And so, the first week, I was very depressed and crying, and I knew what I had done was the wrong choice. I knew it was wrong, and I felt so guilty and so ashamed, and I missed that life that was no longer there. I could feel this void. And so, my mom caught me crying, and she said, "You've got to learn to deal with this and get on with your life. You can't go around crying anymore. I can't take it. You can't handle it. I can't handle it. We're just going to have to move on." And so that's what I tried to do. And I learned very early on that as long as everything on the outside looked okay, nobody could tell on the inside how I was feeling. It was a mask, and I learned to wear many of them, and to be who everybody expected me to be. And this continued, carrying this guilt and shame continued. And when I was 16, I asked for forgiveness, and I wanted God to forgive me so badly. But I did not accept that salvation. And I never really felt like I could be forgiven for something as bad as taking my own child's life. And so I didn't accept it. And I lived with the hurt and shame for all those years. And my husband and I, when we were married, a year into our marriage, I had a miscarriage, 9.5 weeks. And I felt God was punishing me. And I felt like I deserved it. And I thought to myself, I took my child, by my hands is how I felt, and now he's taking my child with his hands. And I deserve it. And I was so, just the emotions all over again that I was feeling were all the same. And then fast forward, this has been up until 2 years ago when I rededicated my life, living with that shame and the pain. It just became a part of me. It was just who I was. I woke up with it. I went to bed with it. It was like chains that had become in my skin. They had become my skin. And I just couldn't live that way anymore. And then 2 years ago, I just remember crying out to God. God, I have asked for forgiveness for this probably 20, 50 times a day. I don't even know. It's a lot. The thought would just come into your mind and you just asking for forgiveness for it over and over and over and over again. And you just never, it just never leaves you. And I remember God saying, just say it. Just say the word. I was never able to say the word, God, forgive me of this abortion. I couldn't do it. The word just, it scared me. And it was just too hurtful, too much pain. But I said it. And it was like so freeing for me. And that was the first moment that I felt alive. Here I am married, and I had 3 beautiful kids, but I wasn't living because I was so inside myself with this pain. And I isolated myself from people. And I had anxiety and depression and anger, all the emotions. And there were a few times in my life that I was even suicidal. I had thought about, I never attempted to, but I had thought about killing myself because I couldn't live with the memory. And how I wish that I would have had a place like Allegheny Pregnancy Care Center to come to, because if I had had a place to turn to give me guidance, I know that my decision would have been differently. But I'm thankful for what God has done now so that I can share my story with others. My heart just breaks for those who live with the pain of it, because it stays with you. Mine was 17 years that I lived with that pain, and I always lived with it. I went to a Rachel's Vineyard retreat for the first time, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a retreat for just post-abortive women to find healing. And I went in February of 2012. And it was there that I was able to name my child. And I thought at first, when they told us we were going to name our children, I thought, how are we going to do that? I don't know. It's a boy or it's a girl. And they told us to pray and that God would give you the answer. And he told me I had a daughter. And so I wanted to name her something so special. She deserved a grand name. But I couldn't think of anything that was special enough for her. And so he said, Amy, the name Amy. And I thought, it's just not that there's anything wrong with Amy, but I just was expecting something so special. And so I looked at the meaning of the name Amy, and it means loved. And he loves her, and he loves me, and I love her. And so, because of him calling me to speak out, and I do this for God first of all, but I do this for Amy too, because there are so many babies that could be saved. So, more Amy's can live. And I want to read this poem that I found as I end. It's called There Is a Place, and the author is unknown. There is a place within a woman no man has ever known, a place touched only by God, touched somewhere behind memories of the heart. It is the place where babies come from, where dreams are stored of things to come and children yet to be. There is a place within a woman no man has ever known, a God-blessed place for soul inhabits that only God can heal. Abandoned by man, she abandons God, sacrificing her unborn child and herself in the abortionist's room. There is a place within a woman no man has ever known, a place touched only by God and a few who do his will. Remember, says the priest, he does not make mistakes. Before you were conceived, God thought of you and loved you. He has cried real tears for you. Let him heal you. There is a place within a woman no man has ever known, a place touched only by God and a few brave souls with willing hands and prayerful hearts who dare to journey with her. They weep with her and rock her gently, leading her back to herself. There is a place within a woman no man has ever known, a place touched only by God, where memories are born from, memories and forgiveness is carried on, the voice of a child. Few ears can hear, few hearts will know except for him and me, and now me.